When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. Some people don't like change, but you need to embrace change if the alternative is disaster. Patience is a virtue, and I'm learning patience. It's a tough lesson. If something's important enough, you should try. Even if the probable outcome is failure. I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right. I think there should be regulations on social media to the degree that it negatively affects the public good. We're running the most dangerous experiment in history right now, which is to see how much carbon dioxide the atmosphere can handle before there is an environmental catastrophe. People should pursue what they're passionate about. That will make them happier than pretty much anything else. It's okay to have your eggs in one basket as long as you control what happens to that basket. Any product that needs a manual to work is broken. Starting a business is not for everyone. Starting a business, I'd say, number one is have a high pain threshold. I think that's the single best piece of advice. Constantly think about how you could be doing things better and questioning yourself. There have to be reasons that you get up in the morning and you want to live. Why do you want to live? What's the point? What inspires you? What do you love about the future? If the future does not include being out there among the stars and being a multi-planet species, I find that incredibly depressing. Brand is just a perception, and perception will match reality over time. Sometimes it will be ahead, other times it will be behind. But brand is simply a collective impression some have about a product. Rockets are cool. There's no getting around that. It's very important to like the people you work with. Otherwise, your job is going to be quite miserable. The value of beauty and inspiration is very much underrated, no question. But I want to be clear, I'm not trying to be anyone's savior. I'm just trying to think about the future and not be sad. I say something, and then it usually happens. Maybe not on schedule, but it usually happens. I think we have a duty to maintain the light of consciousness to make sure it continues into the future. We can't have, like, willy-nilly proliferation of fake news. That's crazy. You can't have more types of fake news than real news. That's allowing public deception to go unchecked. That's crazy. If humanity doesn't land on Mars in my lifetime, I would be very disappointed. We're already cyborgs. Your phone and your computer are extensions of you, but the interface is through finger movements or speech, which are very slow. There's a silly notion that failure's not an option at NASA. Failure is an option here. If things are not failing, you are not innovating enough. When Henry Ford made cheap, reliable cars, people said, "Nah, what's wrong with a horse?" That was a huge bet he made, and it worked. I think it's very important to have a feedback loop, where you're constantly thinking about what you've done and how you could be doing it better. I don't create companies for the sake of creating companies, but to get things done. I think we are at the dawn of a new era in commercial space exploration. I do love email. Wherever possible, I try to communicate asynchronously. I'm really good at email. When I was a child, there's one thing I said: I never want to be alone. That's what I would say. I don't want to be alone. If I'm not in love, if I'm not with a long-term companion, I cannot be happy. Tesla is becoming a real car company. I wouldn't say I have a lack of fear. In fact, I'd like my fear emotion to be less because it's very distracting and fries my nervous system. You could warm Mars up, over time, with greenhouse gases. We are the first species capable of self-annihilation. Life is too short for long-term grudges. If you're trying to create a company, it's like baking a cake. You have to have all the ingredients in the right proportion. I think it's very important to have a feedback loop, where you're constantly thinking about what you've done and how you could be doing it better. I think that's the single best piece of advice. Constantly think about how you could be doing things better and questioning yourself. If you get up in the morning and think the future is going to be better, it is a bright day. Otherwise, it's not. I would like to die on Mars. Just not on impact. People work better when they know what the goal is and why. It is important that people look forward to coming to work in the morning and enjoy working. I think it matters whether someone has a good heart. Great companies are built on great products. When I was a child, there's one thing I said: I never want to be alone. That's what I would say. I don't want to be alone. I always invest my own money in the companies that I create. I don't believe in the whole thing of just using other people's money. I don't think that's right. I'm not going to ask other people to invest in something if I'm not prepared to do so, Miss A. I really do encourage other manufacturers to bring electric cars to market. It's a good thing, and they need to bring it to market and keep iterating and improving and make better and better electric cars, and that's what's going to result in humanity achieving a sustainable transport future. I wish it was growing faster than it is. Really, the only thing that makes sense is to strive for greater collective enlightenment. To make an embarrassing admission, I like video games. That's what got me into software engineering when I was a kid. I wanted to make money so I could buy a better computer to play better video games, nothing like saving the world. I think you should always bear in mind that entropy is not on your side. Self-driving cars are the natural extension of active safety and obviously something we should do. I will never be happy without having someone. Going to sleep alone kills me. I think life on Earth must be about more than just solving problems. It's got to be something inspiring, even if it is vicarious. If we drive down the cost of transportation in space, we can do great things. If you go back a few hundred years, what we take for granted today would seem like magic: being able to talk to people over long distances, to transmit images, flying, accessing vast amounts of data like an oracle. These are all things that would have been considered magic a few hundred years ago. These are all things that would have been considered magic a few hundred years ago. In order to have your voice be heard in Washington, you have to make some little contribution. If you're entering anything where there's an existing marketplace, against large, entrenched competitors, then your product or service needs to be much better than theirs. It can't be a little bit better, because then you put yourself in the shoes of the consumer. You're always going to buy the trusted brand unless there's a big difference. A company is a group organized to create a product or service, and it is only as good as its people and how excited they are about creating. I do want to recognize a ton of super talented people. I just happen to be the face of the companies. The factory is the machine that builds the machine. The key to making things affordable is design and technology improvements, as well as scale. The problem is that in a lot of big companies, process becomes a substitute for thinking. You're encouraged to behave like a little gear in a complex machine. Frankly, it allows you to keep people who aren't that smart, who aren't that creative. An asteroid or a supervolcano could certainly destroy us, but we also face risks that dinosaurs never saw: an engineered virus, nuclear war, inadvertent creation of a micro black hole, or some as yet unknown technology could spell the end of us. If you don't have sustainable energy, you have unsustainable energy. The fundamental value of a company like Tesla is the degree to which it accelerates the advent of sustainable energy faster than it would otherwise occur. If you think back to the beginning of cell phones, laptops, or really any new technology, it's always expensive. The future of humanity is going to bifurcate in two directions: either it's going to become multiplanetary, or it's going to remain confined to one planet, and eventually there's going to be an extinction event. The United States is definitely ahead in culture of innovation. If someone wants to accomplish great things, there is no better place than the US. I tend to approach things from a physics framework. And physics teaches you to reason from first principles rather than by analogy. I just want to retire before I go senile, because if I don't retire before I go senile, then I'll do more damage than good at that point. For all the supporters of Tesla over the years, and it's been several years now and there have been some very tough times, I'd just like to say thank you very much. I deeply appreciate the support, particularly through the darkest times. Physics is really figuring out how to discover new things that are counterintuitive, like quantum mechanics. It's really counterintuitive. If you want to grow a giant redwood, you need to make sure the seeds are okay, nurture the sapling, and work out what might potentially stop it from growing all the way along. Anything that breaks it at any point stops that growth. I hate writing about personal stuff. I don't have a Facebook page. I don't use my Twitter account. I am familiar with both, but I don't use them. It is definitely true that the fundamental enabling technology for electric cars is lithium-ion as a cell chemistry technology. In the absence of that, I don't think it's possible to make an electric car that is competitive with a gasoline car.